Deputy Butler. Deputy Alan Kelly, you have 8 minutes.
I'll be speaking here tonight on behalf of the Labour Party in favour of this bill. I'm pleased to see that Sinn Féin have followed in my party's wake in response to our successful private members' motion last month, where we pledged to enhance workers' rights and committed to a number of measures in tackling precarious work and zero-hour contracts. Our motion specifically committed to ending the abuse of if and when contracts, and I believe the bill before us goes some way in part towards achieving that aim. Another measure in our motion was to provide collective bargaining rights for freelance workers, and I'm proud to see my Labour colleagues in Shannon Éireann have introduced a bill to ensure this also. I believe that if we all work together, progressive deputies from across this House and indeed Shannon Éireann can achieve significant advancements in the rights and conditions of workers in the coming years working together. And it is in this vein that I offer my contribution here this evening on Sinn Féin's bill. While in government, the Labour Party commissioned the study into the prevalence of zero-hour contracts among Irish employers, as well as their impact on employees. This study was carried out, as we all know, by the University of Limerick and made a number of worthwhile recommendations into how we might modernise Ireland's labour laws and deal effectively with unfair work practices by unscrupulous employers. Key among its recommendations was, colleagues, quote, when negotiating at sectoral level, employer organisations and trade unions should examine examples of good practice which can provide flexibility for employers and more stable working conditions for employees, such as annual hours and banded hours agreements. Banded hours contracts seek to guarantee employees a certain number of working hours per week, but not the scheduling of these hours. This allows employers to respond to the volume of trade on a week-by-week basis while not hampering the earning potential of their employees to a great extent. Banded hours contracts essentially ensure that so-called if and when arrangements, where employers don't know 1 week to the next what hours they are working, employees, ensures that this is curtailed. This allows workers the ability to plan in relation to accommodation costs, bills and everything else, all the day-to-day necessities which these people are entitled to. These are especially needed in the retail sector, where full-time contracts, previously the norm, appear to have been slowly phased out and replaced with these so-called if and when contracts and low-hour contracts, which lack the stability of previous arrangements, and this is having a hugely negative effect on the ability of workers in this sector to plan for their weekly expenses and plan for their lives. Changes, particularly in the retail sector, in terms of customer spending patterns, longer opening hours and increased competition have meant most employees in the retail sector now work less than 35 hours per week across a greater number of days, with many subsidising income through social welfare support or other jobs. This is not a sustainable position for many workers to exist under, and we don't agree with it. Banded hours contracts serve to ensure employees a minimum number of hours per week by placing them within distinct bands. Typically, a review of these contracts takes place, and where an employee continuously works above that band, they are lifted into the next band in recognition of the increased hours which they have worked, and it becomes an agreed norm. This bill would entitle either an individual worker or a trade union working on their behalf after a period of 6 months continuous employment to request in writing from their employer to be moved into an increased weekly band of hours. There would also be an obligation on the employer to consider this request and provide a reasoned decision in response to the request in writing not later than 21 days of receipt of the request. Where an employer grants the request, the worker shall be informed in writing as soon as is practicable and shall henceforth be offered hours of work by that employer of at least a minimum number of hours in the increased band. The employer may refuse the request if he or she can demonstrate the employer's business has experienced severe financial difficulties, such as there is a substantial risk that the workers concerned will be laid off or made redundant, the sustainability of the employer's business will be significantly adversely affected, or where the employer's business could not sustain the giving of an increased level of banded hours to the worker. Where an employer agrees to the employee being placed in a higher band, this will be reflected in a revised written contract of employment. This goes some way in also providing protections, I believe, for small businesses which are just beginning to feel the benefits of economic recovery. But it doesn't appear to include allowances which exist in current banded hours agreements for peak and trough periods, particularly surrounding Christmas holidays, where trading hours are unusual. In arrangements currently in place, these periods are not included in the band calculation, as they significantly distort the average number of hours worked. So I would ask my colleagues to the left in Sinn Féin for clarification on this matter, and if they intend to include such a provision and how such contracts would operate. I do also welcome, though, the avenues contained within the bill through which employees may appeal a decision by their employers, and that this will go to the Workplace Relations Commission and be heard by an adjudication officer without prejudice. These banded hours contracts are directed primarily to major retail operators, which are running significant profits on the back of their employees, and who can well afford to provide reasonable guarantees to their employees in respect of their working hours. Banded hours arrangements have already been agreed between the Mandate Trade Union and a number of major retailers, including Tesco, Penneys, Marks and Spencers and SuperValu, and I understand that they work very effectively there. The bill also mandates that every employer shall display on a weekly or monthly basis in a prominent position or positions or at the place of work a notice or notices in a formal manner such that the notice is reasonably likely to be understood by all workers concerned. The notice shall contain the number of working hours being allocated to the workers in the forthcoming week or month and which band those hours fall under per week. This is, colleagues, especially important provision, as it ensures the workers know how many hours they have to be available to work each week, and they can plan to live their lives around, increasingly complicated lives around these. So, I would like to express the support of the Labour Party for what this bill is trying to achieve. The long-term casualisation of work and the over-reliance on zero-hour contracts, particularly in the retail and accommodation sectors, is something we collectively in this House should all oppose. And we must act in amending existing legislation to ensure that abusive employment practices are absolutely cut out, and that our labour laws are reflective of the circumstances of Irish workers in 2016. We must also strengthen our industrial relations process to ensure that employers are compelled to work with trade unions in the best interests of both businesses and staff. The Labour Party recommits itself once again to prioritising the advancement of workers' rights in Ireland and in providing the necessary balance between the needs of the employer, but most importantly, the employees. We must be ambitious in our outlook for the future of work practices in Ireland, and I am glad to now see that other parties in the House have chosen to join with my party, the Labour Party, in this campaign for a recovery to be felt by all workers, where those who go out and work each day for an honest day's pay for an honest day's work are the first to benefit from the recovery, and where their conditions of employment are fair and that they are protected from unscrupulous employers. Count Corley, it looks, given the contribution from the party opposite, Fianna Fáil, it looks like there is an agreement between the government and the main opposition party in relation to an amendment to this bill. I would favour this bill being supported outright by the House. However, if that consensus does become what has resulted here, obviously we will participate fully to ensure that within 1 year that this issue will be dealt with, and dealt with for all employees who need it to be dealt with. Thank
you very much. The next slot, Deputy Mick Barry, you propose to share.